Mexico's war with the mighty drugs cartels is about to hit a crossroads. This weekend, a new president will be elected after Felipe Calderón's term comes to an end. And all the candidates acknowledge the long-running American-backed war on drugs, which has left tens of thousands of people dead, has to change course. The US involvement is also under intense scrutiny there after a covert operation to track guns flowing into Mexico went disastrously wrong. Well, Carl Dinnen is in Washington now. Carl, what is the covert operation? What happened?
The operation was called Fast and Furious after the action movie and seems to have been every bit as gung-ho. The idea was that US agents would allow thousands of weapons to be bought in the United States and trafficked to the cartels in Mexico. They would track those weapons and that would lead them to the criminals. The problem was they lost track of at least 1,000 out of 2,000 weapons that went across the border. And those guns were eventually implicated in the deaths of up to 300 Mexican nationals and, critically, one US border security agent. At that point, the whole operation was blown wide open and has turned into a scandal.
And now even the White House is being dragged into this.
It has, because Congress has been investigating what went wrong with Fast and Furious, and they've been demanding documents from the Attorney General. Barack Obama has told him not to hand them over, and so Congress has held the Attorney General in contempt of Congress for his failure to aid that investigation. That's the first time in US history that that has happened. So severely embarrassing, but it also seems to speak to the sense of crisis and mayhem even that seems to be surrounding the war against the drugs cartels on both sides of the US-Mexican border. As I found out when I travelled to Mexico for tonight's special report, which does contain some flash photography. When the Marines are hiding behind masks, it's hardly a sign of confidence. This is Acapulco, once a playground for rich Americans, now a battleground for vicious Mexican drug cartels. The government would like the tourists back. So these days, the Mexican Marine Corps patrol the streets of Acapulco. Now, the cartels, as a rule, know better than to tangle with these chaps, but that doesn't mean Mexico's winning the war. Outgoing President Felipe Calderón declared war on the cartels 6 years ago. Since then, up to 60,000 people have died. At times, the violence is remarkably vicious. And these men know that if they are recognized, it's their families who are at risk.
Many of the soldiers are local, and that's dangerous for us and our families. That's why we use the masks, so people don't recognize us. Sometimes we arrest criminals, and they could take revenge against us.
Acapulco has lost the allure it had when JFK honeymooned here with Jackie. US college kids no longer crowd the beach, and 50% of downtown businesses have shut. So opposition to this war is growing. It's led by victims groups. Gerardo Hazel's brother, Eder, was kidnapped last year.
I think the war the president started was wrong. It was a failure. The only people who've lost through this war were the citizens. I lost my brother, and I don't know where he is. I don't know where I would have to go to find him.
Those kind of anti-war sentiments are now part of the political mainstream here. All the major presidential contenders are searching for ways to reduce the violence which the military campaign has unleashed. I asked the lieutenant if they're winning.
Buena pregunta.
That's a good question.
With so much blood spilled and so little obvious progress, politicians right across Latin America, from Colombia to Guatemala to Costa Rica, are questioning whether this approach to the war on drugs is really working at all. Enrique Peña Nieto is the frontrunner in the presidential elections. His security policy: stop the violence, but also stop chasing the drugs bosses. And there's a place where that might be popular. These musicians are leading a celebration at the shrine of Jesus Malverde. Mexican narco-traffickers regard him as their patron saint. They come here to celebrate their successes. This time, there are some dangerous-looking men standing outside, and we're warned not to film them. This is Culiacan, home of the biggest narcotics gang in the world. And in a downtown hotel, I meet a man who used to work for them. We've disguised his identity.
I've seen so many drugs. If I tell you, you might not believe me. I've seen 50 tons of marijuana, maybe more, and 3, 4, 5 tons of cocaine.
El Chapo Guzman is the boss of the Sinaloa cartel. He escaped from prison 11 years ago and is now considered the most wanted man in the world. His cartel has estimated income of $3 billion a year. The United States supports Mexico's policy of arresting cartel bosses, but it doesn't always work. Last week, the Mexicans arrested a man they thought was Guzman's son. They say they used US intelligence, but they got the wrong man. What difference has President Calderon's offensive against the cartels made?
There's nothing. Nothing has happened since he came to power. Everything's the same. The cartels continue working.
And for some people, that's good for business. Under each of these umbrellas, money changers wait to exchange US dollars, even though Culiacan is 600 miles from the US border. Cash payments for luxury cars and even boats were once common in Culiacan, although now the regulations have been tightened. Yet the economy of Sinaloa is still bloated with narco dollars. How much of the economy here is made up of laundered money?
More or less 20% of the GDP. The laundering money is more or less $4 billion.
Dollars?
Dollars.
Every year?
Every year.
But while the big money stays with a few, the violence spreads to many. This family is preparing a feast for visitors who have come to mourn the man of the house. Margarito Genchi Casiano was a local candidate in this weekend's elections. His wife shows us the spot where he was gunned down.
When I came here to the corral, he was lying on the ground where the cross is. He was alive. I tried to speak with him and move him because he was choking, but he died immediately.
Maria says she doesn't know why her husband was killed, but she does believe he was another victim of the cartels. Cartels who are so well financed and so well armed that the Mexican state itself is now thinking twice about taking them on.
Dinnen reporting from Mexico on how they are reassessing the war on drugs.